Gojira 1962 here, and today I want to talk about some Godzilla history that has become iconic. We have to travel over 2 decades to the past, so get ready to dunk some basketballs because we're going to the court of Tokyo to see Godzilla vs. Charles Barkley. In 1992, Godzilla was a massive hit. Godzilla vs. Mothra released that year and it proved that Godzilla still had a growing audience. During this time, Toho was doing new stuff with Godzilla. We got some TV shows, plenty of games, and even a collaboration that no one expected. This being Godzilla vs. Charles Barkley. This collaboration was released on September 9th, 1992. This was supposed to be a Japanese release, but after impressing Nike, it was allowed to be shown in the US. This ad shows off Godzilla rampaging through Tokyo, but you see something. Charles Barkley walks in with a basketball. Godzilla reacts by putting on some sunglasses, and then he knocks the basketball into the air, only for Barkley to catch it. Barkley then smashes Godzilla into a building and slam dunking the basketball. And see them both walking off into the distance with Barkley comforting Godzilla for asking him if he's ever worn shoes. It's a very silly commercial and it's a lot of fun. This commercial was made by Industrial Light and Magic, the studio about movies like Star Wars, Transformers, and Iron Man, so handing them Godzilla is a great idea. And I believe it was. Great special effects and a nice looking Godzilla design. The production of the ad was very similar to the Japanese films that were coming out at the time. On a segment titled Light Camera Magic for the show Scientific American Frontiers, an episode went in depth about how the commercial was made. Director Michael Owens was the man charged of this project. As he says in the episode, he trusts everyone at ILM because he knows them, but especially because he has to for it to work. There was a tail prop made to portray Godzilla's tail when he swipes at something, just like in the Japanese films. And as for the suit, the actor would look through the neck to see everything, just like the Japanese films. Of course, we have Charles Barkley playing himself, but as for Godzilla, Ron Teal is playing the king of the monsters. Unfortunately, when doing research for this video, I couldn't find any information on Ron. But as for Barkley, there was plenty of information. But back to the making of this legendary commercial. When creating the city, the set was reused for Ghostbusters 2. And not only was it rebuilt to portray Tokyo, but was also brought to life thanks to the use of mats. Which, for those who don't know, mats are a combination of one or more images to create an illusion of something, in this case, Tokyo. But of course, the actors weren't hundreds of feet tall, so in filming, it was filmed at a high frame rate, then slowed down to capture the feel and look of the two stars being giant. A technique Japan is all too familiar with. In animating Godzilla's atomic breath, it was hand-drawn and required 72 images to be done only for 3 seconds of footage. The episode actually goes in depth about how, when making Godzilla's entrance, the team did it layer by layer, filming different things like people fleeing, helicopters going by, and plenty more, putting it all together to make this shot. Meanwhile, Barkley's entrance was all done in one shot. Now when we get onto what is quite possibly the toughest part of making this commercial, Barkley meeting Godzilla. To do the shot, what was wanted was for Barkley to be bending down as Godzilla is ready to fight, meanwhile having the Tokyo sign in the background. Barkley was to have his feet, body, and head all together, while still showing everything else off. Now, to some this may sound like a simple task, but in execution, it wasn't. And on top of all of this, Barkley was to lunge at Godzilla. Barkley was very kind though, and said, "I don't mind working." But eventually they got the shot, meaning the rest of the commercial could be filmed. Godzilla's head was remotely controlled and every bit of his head could move from his eyes, the jaw, or even his eyebrows. A very impressive Godzilla suit if you ask me. When filming the scene where Godzilla is butted in his jaw by Barkley, it was very tough to do because neither Barkley or the puppeteers could get the right movement. This was until the director had the idea to film the scene in reverse. And just like earlier when making Godzilla's entrance, the big shot of the commercial, Barkley dunking on Godzilla was filmed with 2 different shots and put together in editing. In the end, the director Michael Owens was happy with the finished product. It took 8 days to film and 4 weeks to edit, and in the end, I'd say it was worth it. Now this isn't the only behind the scenes footage, because there was a Japanese advertisement that showed off the making of the production as well. Though this one was much shorter and doesn't have much to offer. We do get some new shots, not seen in the Scientific American Frontiers episode, but other than that, not much value can be found here except for a brief interview with Barkley on set, where he says how he's a big fan and was happy to hear about this commercial. Though do take that with a grain of salt, because I'm going off of YouTube auto-translated subtitles. After the release of the commercial, it was a success, being a fun, lighthearted piece of Godzilla media. When it was brought to America, the ending line was changed from Barkley saying,
"Have you ever thought about wearing shoes?"
to
Looking for a big man?
Barkley actually talked about this event in September of 1993 during Saturday Night Live. He talked about a possible rematch, but Godzilla backed out. This led to him playing against Barney the Dinosaur, but later the same year in December, a comic was released by Dark Horse Comics titled Godzilla vs. Barkley. The comic Godzilla vs. Barkley is a comic that has nothing to do with the commercial. The comic, which was published by Mike Richardson, goes into a new story. It starts off with a Japanese vessel at sea when suddenly Godzilla attacks and destroys the ship. Then we meet a kid named Matthew, who is going to meet Charles Barkley with his grandfather at a beach. After failing to meet Barkley, Matthew's grandfather comforts him and gives him a silver dollar. He tells him it has magical properties. Then suddenly a survivor of the Japanese vessel washes ashore. He warns the people on the beach about Godzilla and how he's coming. Then without fail, Godzilla pops up from the ocean. Matthew gets on a skateboard and gets away after his grandfather tells him to run. Godzilla is attacked by the military, but he retaliates by using his atomic breath. Matthew skateboards to Barkley and jumps into his arms. Barkley says, "Nice entrance, kid. What's up?" Matthew explains to Barkley how he's the only one who can stop Godzilla, and Barkley agrees and proceeds to fire his team. We cut to Barkley driving away. Matthew brings up an idea of how they could use the magical silver dollar's properties, possibly putting the silver dollar bill in Barkley's mouth. But Matthew sees a basketball court and tells Barkley to pull over so he can show him some moves. Barkley agrees and decides to bet using the silver dollar. After flipping the silver dollar, he goes to pick it up, and this transforms Barkley into a giant. He looks over at Godzilla and says, "Now I feel like playing some hoops." Barkley comes over to Godzilla, confronting him, and chucks a basketball into Godzilla's face. Godzilla reacts by shooting his atomic breath. Barkley quickly dodges it. Barkley brings up the idea to go somewhere else, so they do. They go to an Air Force base. Barkley allows Godzilla to have the basketball first, and pulls down some shuffle scaffold to use as a hoop. Godzilla scores and hits Barkley in the face, with Barkley saying, "You sure you never played in the NBA? Because that was a major league hit." Barkley then gets the ball and completely destroys Godzilla using his basketball skills, and even gets a hit in using his elbow. Godzilla doesn't like this, so he shoots the basketball using his atomic breath. The ball melts in Barkley's hands, with the basketball player accusing Godzilla of being a sore loser, with Godzilla being confused. But Barkley comes around and comforts Godzilla, talking about how he can improve Godzilla's basketball skills. Afterwards, we see Godzilla and Barkley in a remote canyon in Utah. Godzilla is sitting wearing shoes, and Barkley tells Godzilla to do 1,000,000 layups. And as the comic says, Godzilla got busy. We finish the comic with Matthew, the boy from earlier, going up against another kid at a basketball court. This other kid is making fun of Matthew because he believes Matthew really didn't meet Barkley. Then, none other than Charles Barkley, of course, comes up saying, "I owe you $1." Then we see Matthew getting the ball through the hoop, with Barkley saying, "Swiss." This comic doesn't have much to offer when it comes to behind the scenes. For example, the plot was done by Alan Smithy, but for those who don't know, Alan Smithy is a fake name used for when people don't want their names used for projects. Though what I can tell you is, this comic has become an interesting piece to collect over the years. Due to this being a one-shot comic without any sequels, it has become expensive, but over the past few years, the price has become better. As of this video, you can actually find it for around $20 to $50, depending on who you get it from. Godzilla vs. Charles Barkley has a decent amount of merchandise released for it. There were shirts, hats, posters, bag, and I'm sure much more, but that's what I could find. Now, I brought up earlier how in a Japanese advertisement, Charles Barkley said how he's a big fan of Godzilla. But many years, Barkley admitted he had no idea who Godzilla was. 30 years after the commercial release, there was an interview in which many of the people who worked on the commercial talked about making it. I won't go over everything because I'd recommend you go read it yourself, which I'll leave in the link in the description below, but I'll give you a few details here. When it comes to the Godzilla suit, Toho had to be convinced to allow Godzilla to be as expressive as he was, and it took the team behind the commercial some convincing to allow Toho to have Godzilla put on sunglasses. The suit actually had Nike shoes on it, so it was easy on the feet, but like Godzilla's suits before it, the suit was very heavy and very hot. When the commercial started the editing process, not much was done. When there was only 15 seconds of footage done, Nike wanted to see it, and this is what led to them being so impressed the commercial went from being just for Asia to the rest of the world. And finally, in the interview, we found out how the commercial was uploaded to YouTube. It was actually the editor of the commercial, Bob Sarles, who put it onto YouTube. I really enjoyed going over the history of this wild time in Godzilla's history. Although it only lasted 2 years, it's still alive and strong to this day. Either it be the commercial or the comic, this piece of Godzilla history is something that won't soon be forgotten. It's one of those things that doesn't have to be taken seriously and easy, lighthearted fun. Though of course a lot of hard work and talent went into this project. I personally love the Godzilla design used in the commercial, and hope we can see more of it in the future. If any of the crew that worked on the comic or TV commercial see this video, let me know down in the comments what it was like to work on these projects, because from the looks of it, the team is still happy to have worked on Godzilla vs. Charles Barkley. For those who want more of this moment in Godzilla history, let me know and they'll do a second part in which I'll go over way more stuff. I hope y'all enjoyed and make sure to like and subscribe, so I know to make more content like this. Go to Joe1962, signing off.